Podcast Network Asia.
This episode is brought to you by Podmetrics. Podmetrics is a podcast analytics platform that enables podcasters to see all the relevant data they need to know about their podcast's audience. Sign up now at podmetrics.co and use the referral code Wrestling2XPod. Again, the code Wrestling2XPod.
What's going on? This is Xavier Woods, aka Austin Creed.
I said, give me a hell yeah!
Hey, this is Zeta Zane.
Hello, WWE Universe in the Philippines. This is Charlotte.
Talent is not sexually transmitted.
You need to go back to the drawing board because your game absolutely sucks!
Hey everyone, this is Jeff Cobb, and you're listening to the Wrestling Podcast.
You are watching and listening to the longest running weekly episodic Filipino wrestling podcast. This is the Wrestling Podcast. Stan C, Romoran, and Chino Liao at your service for the last Thursday of May. Bilis, no? We're like 5 months into 2021. And
yet, we're still in lockdown.
Yes, we are still very much on lockdown. Chino, kailan ka ba uuwi? May date ka na ba?
Meron na.
Okay, buti naman kasi
nice
baka dyan ka na forever.
Soon. I will only say soon kasi pag sinabi ko yung totoong date, baka maudlot eh. So soon.
Right,
soon.
fair. Baka ma-jinx.
Yeah. Safe ka na rin naman. You're fully vaccinated. I assume the rest of your family is fully vaccinated. Yes. So I'm really happy that you guys have all your ducks in a row already. So that's good. Really good to hear that things are going well on your side of things. Dito naman sa atin, syempre, another Thursday in lockdown, as Chino mentioned. So instead of just whining and griping about it, let's give some stuff away to our listeners. And let's start off this week's episode with the winner of our New Era Cap giveaway. So for this week, we are handing out a Macho Man Randy Savage snapback, kind of like the one I'm wearing now. So the one I'm wearing now, syempre hindi ito yung bibigay natin, akin to eh. I've got another one here dito sa bahay, which will be shipping out to the winner. So we asked you guys for the beef jerky company that Randy Savage used to shill back in the day. And of course, we all know that the correct answer is Slim Jim.
Yeah, maybe Babyface, the producer Nikay, can flash the question.
Sige. Yon there. Thanks, Babyface producer Nikay. So yes, Randy Savage was the spokesperson for which beef jerky snack. We all know the correct answer is Slim Jim. Ooh yeah! Ang daming nag-comment pa ng ooh yeah sa comments. So counted yan, syempre. And we hope that you follow the instructions, including following us on Spotify and on all our social media, as well as at New Era Cap PH on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. With that said, Babyface producer Nikay, let's put the magic roulette on the screen.
Yay. Oh, look at that. Look at all those colors.
Daming names for this week. All right. Ro, Chino, are you guys ready?
Yeah, I'm ready.
Let's do it.
Spin that wheel.
Spin it, Babyface producer Nikay. Let's find out who will be walking away. Figuratively.
Si J. Cole ba? Mananalo.
And the winner is Florence Jonelle Between. Congratulations.
Sorry, George.
Suck it, George.
So close.
Take that, right? George.
Florence Jonelle Between, congratulations.
Congrats.
We'll be getting in touch with you.
Florence.
And we'll be sending
Facebook,
you the
Instagram.
Facebook.com/wrestling podcast. We'll be getting in touch with you for the details on how you can get your cap from us. Now, for next week, ito naman papamigay natin. We're actually looking for 2 winners next week. So, Babyface producer Nikay, let's show them what we're giving away. Dahil 2 winners, they'll each be taking 1 New Era cap. So yung isa Hulk Hogan, yung isa naman, syempre, Macho Man Randy Savage. So we're giving away these caps to represent the Mega Powers. So brush up on your Mega Powers trivia because that's what we'll be asking you next week. For now, though, please do the first step and follow us at Wrestling Podcast on Facebook, Instagram, and Spotify, and then on Twitter and TikTok at Wrestling2XPod. And then Please follow New Era Cap Philippines as well at New Era Cap PH. Big shout outs to Christian Escalante and the rest of the New Era Cap team for hooking us up with these prizes. Congratulations to Florence once again. Thank you so much to everybody who joined next week ulit. If you want to be part of the Wrestling Podcast community, which is really literally growing by the day, you can also do that by joining our Patreon program. So, Ro, let's let them know about how they can become a Wrestling Podcast patron.
All right, guys, it's really easy and really affordable as well to become a Wrestling Podcast patron. All you got to do is head on over to our Patreon page. That's patreon.com/Wrestling Podcast for as low as 250 pesos a month. Pero pwede rin kayo magbigay ng 500 a month. But yeah, as low as 250 a month, you can be a patron and you can have access to all these fun perks like having access to our Discord community where we talk wrestling, joining us in our watch parties for pay-per-views, and getting exclusive content for reviews like for shows like Raw, SmackDown, NXT Dynamite pay-per-views, and also free merch. So we are still coming in the process of coming up with merch ideas. So once we settle in, we will send out more merch. Once we get Chino back, for sure. Pero if you join now, pwede kayo makakuha ng libreng Wrestling Podcast face mask. So again, sign up at patreon.com/Wrestling Podcast for as low as 250 pesos. It's so affordable.
Yes, and that's also how you can be part of our AEW Double or Nothing watch party on Monday, Manila time. So yun, that's our upcoming event. We'll talk about that in a bit. We're going to be predicting Double or Nothing. But first, let's talk about John Cena. Kasi si Vincent siya na yung nagsimula. He threw the first shot in the comment section by saying, I always wanted a John Cena cap before, but not anymore. Sige, so quick context. What happened this week was John Cena was promoting the Fast and the Furious 9, and he said na Taiwan was the first country that would get to watch the movie. At syempre, maraming nagalit na mga taga-China because if you know your geopolitics, to them, Taiwan is not a country. To them, Taiwan is still part of the People's Republic of China. So it's a very problematic and complex issue. And what we're seeing is that a lot of people online, wrestling fans online, are now saying that this is not the heel turn I wanted. Now, John Cena has completely sold out his principles. And honestly, I find this backlash, this hate towards John Cena to be very, very problematic. Do you want to get into your arguments, Ro?
Okay, ako na ba? Okay, there is no denying that disappointing naman tong ginawa ni Cena. Kasi as a country in which that country is kind of infringing, I don't want to, fire up too many sentiments here. Pero as the recipient of this kind of bullying as well in the world stage, we know the pain of, getting bullied by that country. So it's really disappointing. It's really easy to throw your hate at John Cena for capitulating and conceding that fact. But as you see in his apology video, which was actually given English subtitles by a really nice Chinese guy, what he really says is that Tony Lin. Sorry, thank you for bringing it up. What he really says is that he doesn't take back, or he doesn't walk back his comments on Taiwan being a country, but he just apologizes for to Chinese fans for saying it that way. So basically, he was saying, "I'm sorry that we offended, or I offended you guys." So to me, he knows, because he in his ultimate whatever he knows about the world, he knows that Taiwan is a country. That's his first gut reaction. Because yun yung una na sinabi, diba? If that is your first gut reaction, then you kind of know that is what the deal is. But because you are representing an entire film franchise and a lot of people working under you in the film industry, you kind of have to, give in to that pressure a little bit. Para hindi na kayo mawalan ng trabaho, mawalan ng pera. It really is the name of the game. Money is the name of the game. Livelihoods are the name of the game. Instead of coming after John Cena for having to tuck his tail between his legs and apologize, maybe we should be more angry at the country who is forcing people to, not acknowledge Taiwan as a country, diba?
Yeah.
Diba mas madaling magalit doon
you brought up a good point when you said na John Cena represents yung film industry. Kasi, John Cena, if you say na, mayaman naman si Cena eh. Diba? He can afford to lose whatever millions of dollars from the Chinese market. Sure, maybe John Cena can afford it. But yung mga crew people who work on these productions that Cena represents, they cannot. The WWE might be able to afford it, but yung mga other wrestlers who will rely on the Chinese market or some cut of the Chinese market that will go to their paychecks, they can't afford to lose that. So what John Cena did is some top guy stuff. He was actually being a responsible top guy because he understands that he doesn't just represent John Cena. He represents the industries that he works for. So the film industry, the pro wrestling industry, all of which do make money with from China. Kasi if you guys don't know, John Cena is working very closely with Jackie Chan, who is from Hong Kong but is very pro China. That's his stance. So they're working on a film franchise called Snafu na mag-premiere next year. And they're projecting this to have an entire franchise worth millions of dollars. So, ang daling sabihin na, John Cena sold his principles. This is not the heel turn I wanted. Listen, guys, he's not the first and he's not going to be the last celebrity who will be forced to kowtow to China. One of the best examples actually is a K-pop star. Her name is Tzuyu. She's Taiwanese and she's from Twice. So if you're a once, you might probably know this story from 2016 where nakita lang siya with the Taiwanese flag kasi yung gimmick ng Twice nun for that episode they were filming was they have to represent their country and Tsuyu's Taiwanese. So she had to make a letter and read it out loud on video and kita mo talagang labag sa kalooban niya. But she had to because she was forced into doing it by her management, JYP. So, again, not the first, not the last time. When Daryl Morey, the GM of the Philadelphia 76ers, tweeted out, "I stand with Hong Kong," LeBron James scolded Daryl Morey. And people were saying na LeBron tuta ka ng China. No, LeBron was being a top guy in the NBA because he understands that if the Houston Rockets, which Morey was the GM of the time, got canceled in China, which they did, and their NBA games were not broadcast on Tencent, which is their streaming service, which actually happened, it cost the NBA money. And LeBron James understands that. So, ang napaka short-sighted lang for us to say na Cena, what a heel, and yes, Vincent's right. Siguro na conflate natin yung emotions because of our current situation with China and the Philippines. Yes, but when Rose said na you have to keep in mind who the real heel is here, I don't think it's John Cena. Chino, do you have any thoughts on this?
Wow, first of all, can I just say fuck LeBron? Second of all, can I just say that you guys are taking such a different stance considering what I know about your politics and all that.
No, we're not saying that it's good. We're not saying
we're not glorifying it.
Yeah,
we're just saying that we understand why.
Ito yung reality of the situation, of the political situation. As much as I want
agree.
to.
No, yeah, I totally agree. Kasi kahit sabihin ng mga tao na mayaman naman si John Cena, that's not how you do business. You don't do business by taking a loss, diba? By knowingly and purposely taking a loss, by cutting out an entire market from your fans, from the things that you do. Kasi ikaw din yung mahihirapan at the end of the day. John Cena has been very, very positive about his experience in China in general. The man is learning Mandarin to be able to reach that part of the market. Diba? So he's put in so much time and effort. He changed this finisher into that stupid fist thing just to kowtow to the rest of the Chinese population and the culture that they imply, because that's just how invested he is in working with Jackie Chan in that part of the world. Diba? So he's not about to turn his back on it just because he had to apologize for something. Diba? It's part of how we do things. And sometimes you gotta do something that you don't like, and sometimes you just have to swallow that bitter pill.
Yeah. Sorry. I want to mention, kasi Manga Pro Wrestling, our good friend, brought up CM Punk. And he said that if CM Punk was in Cena's shoes, he would have done the same thing. Because CM Punk just changed his Twitter bio to Taiwan as a country, which is obviously to troll Cena. But the problem is, it's easy for Punk to say that because he's not making Hollywood money like Cena is. So,
yes.
I mean, Vincent, yo, man, don't get mad at Cena. Get mad at the system. Get mad at the game. Don't hate the player. Hate the game.
Right. To Chino's point, yung last point na sinabi mo, I agree kasi lahat naman tayo, we've had to say and do things we didn't necessarily like or agree with because of work. Because guess what? We've got to put food on the table. And for the people who are saying that John Cena is supposed to be Captain America, newsflash, do you think he's a Marine in real life?
Sabi ni Emil on Kumu, who is also a once, by the way. So it so happens that he is familiar with the situation, the scenario. He says that he thinks Cena got pressured by someone higher up to retract his statement. It's not completely on him. Yeah, it's probably right. That's probably right. As I want to go back to the point I mentioned that his gut reaction was to call Taiwan a country. So he knows that, it is to be respected as a country. It just so happens that he has to apologize to the Chinese market for, offending their feelings. But he also is really respectful to the Taiwanese market. Because he is, whether they like it or whether China likes it or not, he acknowledges them like our head of the table.
Right. So, that's our little homily, our little litany for this week. Regarding stuff outside the ring. There. Thanks to everybody who left your comments about the John Cena conversation. And if you want to keep it going, keep it classy in the comment section and hit us up at Wrestling2XPod over on Twitter at Roiswar, at Chino Supersized, and at _StanC. We're gonna take our first break. When we come back, we'll talk about Adnan Virk leaving WWE and we'll be predicting AEW Double or Nothing. But before we do that, let's let you know about one of the ways that you can support the podcast, and that is through your online shopping over at Zalora.
All right, guys. Okay, may promo pa kami with Zalora until the end of the month, I believe. So if you are shopping for fits, for clothes and shoes and accessories and all that good stuff from brands like Nike, Adidas, H&M, and all that other good stuff, you just got to use our checkout code before you check out your purchase. The code is wrestling. Again, it's wrestling. You don't got to spell it out for you, and it will give you 25% off and 10% cash back for a minimum purchase of 1,999 pesos. Again, till the end of the month, use it and get that sweet discount.
All right, now let's take a moment to hear from our other podcasts on Podcast Network Asia.
Ako si Paul. At ako naman si Rap. Come listen to our podcast called Stories Philippines Podcast, the very first Pinoy horror anthology podcast. Pakinggan ang mga kwentong nakakatakot, nakakakilabot, at hayaan mo kaming iparamdam sa iyo na hindi ka nag-iisa sa kinauupuan mo. Available in all major podcast platforms, powered by Podcast Network Asia.
Stories Philippines Podcast.
Let's get to some shout-outs on Kumu.
All right. Saying hey to Aaron, our patron, for sending us lechon on Kumu. Maraming salamat, Aaron.
Hey.
Good boy Kyle is also sending us his usual weekly halo-halo. Maraming salamat, Kyle, for all of that. Emil says we should be more mad at China than Cena and other celebrities who happen to give in. So again, we mentioned that before already. Saying hey to Bimbi Aquino. Not the real Bimbi Aquino.
Sayang, kala ko the real Bimbi Aquino.
Had to clarify that real quick.
Kala ko na-influensyan siya ng tito. Sayang.
Oo nga, we were almost there. Almost there. Kyle says, nasasanay pa naman siya kay Adnan. So we will be talking about that in a bit since you brought that up. Thank you for bringing that up. Thank you guys for tuning in to Kumu and on Facebook. It's been a real blast talking to you so far about the things that have happened in the world of wrestling.
All right. So dun sa mga nagtatanong ng questions sa comments, we'll get to your questions at the end of the podcast. So that's
we see you. We see you. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Sige, so let's start with Adnan Virk since na-mention na rin natin siya tonight. So we found out literally the day after Monday Night Raw this week that the WWE and Adnan Virk had parted ways. And some reports are saying na it was a mutual decision. Some reports are also saying, I believe this was Fightful that reported this, na this was already in the plans. Like early on pa lang, WWE already figured out that it wasn't working. And therefore, they were going to make the move to part ways with Adnan Virk. So what are your thoughts on this? Kasi to me, it was clear from the get-go na it just wasn't a good fit. And I guess okay na rin na everybody just cut their losses and went their separate ways.
Yeah, I'm glad that having admittedly not watched his run as a Raw commentator, I'm glad the company recognized the need to change it up as soon as they did. Yes, it did last a little close to 2 months, diba? Before they realized that. But I think the WWE is smart enough to know that this guy is still a little bit too raw for Raw. Kasi nga, it's not his natural environment, diba? He is a sports commentator, but he's not really a sports entertainment personality the way Michael Cole or JR have been for all of us. Now, that said, diba, it's not just because he's doesn't fit the mold that he doesn't belong. It's just because they need somebody immediate to fill in those shoes right now. Kasi nga, Raw is their supposed flagship show and they need the guy to anchor that show.
I don't know. I felt like ang bilis ng proby period ni Adnan Virk. 2 months wasn't enough for him to fully acclimate to everything. I don't know what they were expecting. Did they expect now, okay, this guy did not call wrestling before and we should expect him to know everything by now in 2 or 3 weeks? That's kind of weird. That's kind of a weird expectation on WWE's side. And to be fair to Adnan, even though he wasn't super remarkable, he was learning. He was doing his homework. He wasn't sounding out of place sa commentary booth, sa commentary table. He wasn't the most knowledgeable about wrestling, but he wasn't, botching everything in sight like Mike Adamle, diba? So it was really weird that they would stick to a lot of different guys in other places, in other factors, but they suddenly cut their losses with Adnan Virk really early on. So parang maybe you shouldn't have given him the Raw job. Or maybe they realized now, okay, we have Jimmy Smith, and Jimmy Smith is an actual fan of the business. But sayang lang I feel like as a guy who gives chances, who is okay with giving chances to people, he wasn't terrible. I know you have problems with him, Stan. I know that you like to dunk on him sometimes, but he wasn't terrible, really. He just wasn't remarkable. I don't know what they were looking for here.
I think the reason why Adnan Virk was on Raw was because established name siya, diba? You bring him in from the outside, and diba yung mandate ni Nick Khan, the president at WWE, is to really try to make wrestling mainstream. And one of the ways you do that is bringing in someone like Adnan Virk or someone like Jimmy Smith to give the rub to Monday Night Raw. And clearly that didn't work kasi yun nga, as we've established, Adnan Virk just isn't really a fan of the business. So moving forward towards Jimmy Smith, sabi niyo he's a fan of the business. I'm not sure kasi I've never heard of Jimmy Smith until this week. I hope na he'll do a better job on commentary. But, as we know, sometimes naturally nandyan lang like a Pat McAfee, diba? Someone who knows the business and can really talk. And like, as much as we love Samoa Joe, I don't think he should be like the baseline for every commentator because not everybody can be a Samoa Joe. You get what I mean?
So, yeah, with regards to Jimmy Smith, now, okay, first of all, let me address the Joe statement by saying Samoa Joe didn't want to stay a commentator forever. Yeah. He wanted to get back into the ring as soon as possible. And they just wouldn't let him. They wouldn't clear him in the time that he needed. And so he felt that leaving the WWE was what's best for him. Now, that said, Jimmy Smith is actually a very accomplished fight commentator, fight analyst. He's a former mixed martial artist. He hosted a show called Fight Quest where he would go out into the world and learn different martial arts. This is a real thing that I used to watch. And it was actually a pretty good fit for him because he transformed himself into the Andy Howe of fighting, if you get that PBA reference there. Yung
right.
expert siya sa lahat ng art forms diba? So I don't necessarily see him as the lead commentator for Raw, but maybe as an additional analyst for Monday Night Raw. Because if you remember, he was also part of the sa mga featurette ng NXT for
Prime Target.
Prime Target, yes.
For Balor and Karrion Kross, diba? He was part of that, and he gave his thoughts on the fight. And he said it in his tweet himself that the WWE may have seen something in him that they like and that they gravitate towards him. So I see him perhaps filling that role out more, sort of like how Pat McAfee does for SmackDown.
Basically, tatlo silang color commentator sa Raw.
Okay, if they don't want to bring Tom Phillips back, okay, I'm actually pro Tom Phillips because I think he's not bad. He's a decent and solid play-by-play commentator. But let's say that's not an option. Let's say somebody in there doesn't want Tom Phillips to be your main play-by-play guy on Raw. Why not make Byron Saxton your play-by-play guy?
That's probably what's going to happen. Because Byron Saxton is so plain that he could probably serve as the play-by-play guy.
And I think it's actually going to be a game changer if you put Byron Saxton on play-by-play because I don't think there's really any black play-by-play commentators in wrestling. Parang wala.
Puro color commentator naisip ko actually. That's a good point.
Yeah, so if they really want to shake things up and go for like diversity or changing the game or whatever, why not make Byron Saxton your lead play-by-play guy on Raw and then put Jimmy Smith and Corey Graves in there with him as his heel commentators?
Alan says bring back Todd Grisham. Todd Grisham isn't that good, and he's happy doing football on ESPN.
Yeah. Bring back Morrow. I don't think so because from what we know by now, he himself wanted to get out of the WWE environment. A lot of people in the comment section are stumping for Michael Cole and saying na si Michael Cole din naman walang wrestling background prior to being in WWE. He was a war journalist, diba? And then they put him in these in this role as the backstage reporter. He would get into these skits, kind of like what we associate Jonathan Coachman with. And then gradually he found his voice in the commentary booth. And now my position na siya in the head office. So yeah, I don't think kasi na, what will work with like a Michael Cole can work with everybody else.
I feel, okay, let me just say that with regards to Michael Cole, the business it wasn't the business it is now. It wasn't as big as it is now. They didn't have as many shows. They didn't need to do as many products as they did when Michael Cole was first starting. So he had a Raw and 3 other shows when he was starting out. Whereas with today, the demand is so great and they have a lot more competition that you can't help but acknowledge the fact that they need somebody to fill in that spot quick, especially if they're serious about crossing over to mainstream as fast as they can.
Right. Sige, last bit of news, if unless Ro, meron ka bang notes on Adnan Virk and like who's supposedly going to replace him? Okay. Last bit of news outside the ring before we head into our predictions for Double or Nothing. We got to talk about Velveteen Dream because we found out the day after last week's live stream that he'd been released by WWE. And I was watching yung coverage nito ni Sean Ross Sapp from Fightful, and I really have to applaud the way that he worded everything because that's how careful I'd like to be with how we report things and break them down on the podcast. So we admittedly don't know the entire story with regard to Velveteen Dream, and it took him getting released until he actually went out with his own statement on Instagram. So he released yung statement niya in his stories. I'm sure you can find it easily on Reddit because somebody took screen caps. Medyo mahirap siyang basahin. But he basically defends his own innocence. A lot of the things that are linked with Velveteen Dream, we really have to use the words reportedly or allegedly kasi none of them have completely been proven. And what we know from yung mga lumalabas na backstage rumors, yung mga nire-report on outlets like Fightful or Wrestling Inc. or whatever other wrestling website you like to look at, meron mga nagsasabi that Velveteen Dream also had a bad attitude backstage and that was a bigger factor in his release as opposed to yung mga alleged rumors of sexual misconduct.
Yeah, the fact that he stayed for so long proved to me that, or kind of says that I at the very least WWE believed this innocence. So there might be something there, and that's as much as we can comment on it kasi yun ang alam natin. But being a liability backstage, that may be more true. That may have been a bigger deal. That may have been the final nail in the coffin when it comes to working in the WWE. So you don't really want to work with a guy like that who is kind of blending yung weird aloof in-ring personality niya with his real life. You don't want to, I don't think you should be sharing a locker room with a guy like that. Hopefully, if that's true, hopefully he gets help. Hopefully he comes back a better man, like the Shawn Michaels redemption arc. So yeah, that's all I got to say about that.
Yeah, it hit right on the head here. Reports did say that he's been blurring the lines between kayfabe and reality here, and he's been getting harder and harder to work with. Now, that said, it's nice that he mentioned the Shawn Michaels redemption arc, because I was just watching the biography episode of Shawn Michaels this morning, and grabe din yung upturn ni Shawn Michaels. So maybe Velvet in Dream finds Jesus later on in life. Diba? Who knows? Maybe that's what it takes for him to get back, because he's really talented, and maybe he's
really young.
And really young too, and he's been through so much, diba? Adversity, especially when he was on Tough Enough for that quick spell that he was. And sana he takes this as an opportunity to grow and to be better. Now, we're not saying na kampi tayo dun sa mga nagsasabi ng shit about him, because again, we don't really know what's going on here. But wala naman sa atin may WWE source, diba? So all of this is still up in the air, but I just wish him the best.
Yeah. So, okay, I'm looking at the notes. There's one last na outside the ring bit of news, and we found out this week as well that WWE has fired yung social media, digital, and film production departments nila, or at least employees from all of those departments. And we've been hearing reports that there are another round of cuts coming, and we don't know if this will be from among yung in-ring talent. Pero nakita na natin that they're basically overhauling things from the inside. So, Ro, what does this mean for WWE?
It really means that they are cutting the budget, but I don't know. Well, the reports say that the releases were made to reduce redundancies. So I guess they found a inefficient workflow in the company, I guess, and they're trying to fix that and make it more efficient. I don't know, man. Sayang nga, I guess I feel bad for the people who lost their jobs, and
especially amid a pandemic.
Yeah, amid a pandemic still, even though the US is getting more and more vaccinated by the day. I hope that they get back on their feet. I hope so naman kasi as Chino says, it's getting better over there. So it should be with the WWE's resources, I'm sure they had a nice severance kahit papano, and that should be enough to tie them over.
Now, these reports that have announced the firings of certain employees also say that digital, social media, and film production are actually going to be collapsed into one department. So there we go with the redundancies. Now, that said, I'm going to fall back on what Nick Khan, there we go. Nick Khan says about crossing over to mainstream and replacing key personnel in the company with mainstream Hollywood folk who can help the WWE cross over. Feeling ko that's what the firings actually boiled down to. He wants to put key people and key personnel in place so that they can enact this operation crossover down the line. That's why he reduced a lot of the social media people, because maybe in the future we might see new faces there or hear about people who can actually pull this off.
One of our regular listeners and our good friend Waki Mendoza said in the comment section, unfortunately, digital and social media guys are really among the first to go regardless of industry. I'm not sure how true that is. Kasi sa media where I work, that's not always the case. But I see where you're coming from the advertising perspective, and as we've seen dito sa perspective ng WWE, diba? So yeah, shout out to Julian who is bringing our hashtag Road to Batista up in the comment section. We'll talk about Army of the Dead really quickly, mamaya towards the end. Because I did catch it last night. I think Ro, you caught it this week, diba? So did Chino.
Yeah.
We all have our own thoughts on this, so this should be fun. But first, some business. Okay, let's go over to AEW and let's predict Double or Nothing, which will be on Monday, Manila time. So that should be a very fun sports day if you also follow the NBA playoffs, because basically your entire day will be basketball and wrestling. Okay,
it's big over here because Memorial Day weekend, so it's like a long weekend for everybody else here.
That's right, yeah. I follow a US schedule in my day job, so nafe-feel ko yung long weekend na yun. Okay, let's start with the triple threat, or the three-way dance rather, for the AEW World Heavyweight Championship. Kenny Omega defends against Pac and Orange Cassidy. No chance in hell that Pac and Cassidy will take this, diba?
Yeah.
Yeah,
it is. I don't know. It was just a fun match. It's a fun match.
It's just a spot fest. Typical Orange Cassidy gimmicks.
I did want them to pull the trigger on a one-on-one match between Kenny and Orange Cassidy just to see how it would go. Pero hindi sila brave enough to do that. So, cowards. Tony Khan, come on, man. I wanted to see it.
TK, baka naman.
You brought up the idea. So sana tinuloy mo na.
Oo nga, baka naman. Okay, next up.
Heart attack si Cornet.
that would be something to see for sure. Okay, let's talk about the Women's World Championship. Hikaru Shida defends against Dr. Britt Baker, DMD. Is this time for Dr. Britt? I think it is.
Yeah, I think so. Let's call it. It's been a year for Hikaru Shida. Shida hasn't been doing anything substantial in the past few months. So sana naman, diba, you turn it over and, give somebody else a spotlight.
Yeah, man.
And I think with Dr. Britt as women's champion, you open up an infinite number of possibilities, or a bigger number of possibilities with all the baby faces they have on the roster who can challenge, diba? Your Red Velvets, your Tay Contis, Chris Statlander, Thunder Rosa.
And you recognize somebody who's been there since day one. Literally the very first AEW show, nandun na siya. So it's a win-win for everybody.
Plus, this woman literally bleeds for you.
Yes.
Wait, I just wanted to address Emil in the comments. Sakumu, he asks, is he the only one who actually likes Shida's reign? I like it. It's just time to move on.
Ako, nagsawa na ako. I think by the third month, nung wala na siyang ginagawa talaga.
And the pandemic didn't help either kasi ang daming nawala. So it's not like they could have gone full steam ahead. Na-injure pa si Britt Baker. This is something we glanced over. She was injured for quite some time. So the push that she initially had sort of died down as well. So sana naman this time around, they pulled the trigger and get it right.
Tsaka, wait, one last thing. Tsaka, they weren't really writing any stories with her. They just put her there. She's just a paper champion, so at least Britt Baker has the promise of maybe better stories coming with her.
Yeah. Next up, let's talk about Cody Rhodes versus Anthony Ogogo. Do we care about this match? I don't think so.
I like Ogogo on social media. I think Ogogo's going to win because they are pushing him really hard. I know people don't like the gut punch, but, it is what it is.
I like his moveset. It's very Steve from Tekken.
I know Lance Tanong in the comments has Anthony Ogogo as his favorite AEW wrestler. So I think he's going to get pushed and then they're going to write Cody off to film his series.
Yeah, I would like that kasi sawa na ako kay Cody eh. I don't know why, but I can't take too much of Cody Rhodes anymore. I can't take how he's supposedly the biggest babyface on AEW. And I think parang yung pagka Jeff Jarrett TNA era, nakikita ko na kay Cody.
Yeah.
Kulang lang maging champion siya. So at least he's not doing that.
Yeah, it's like a fake good guy. It's not a believable good guy.
Right, parang now yung mga haters who are saying kay Cody Rhodes na you only left WWE and started your own company so you could push yourself. Cody's kind of proving them right. The only thing that's stopping them from being fully right is hindi siya world champion. So there's that.
Yeah, wait, I want to bring up. You mentioned, starting a company to prove to push himself. He is really banking on the fact that Dusty Rhodes is some sort of mainstream star, which he is not. Dusty Rhodes is a legend in our industry, but he is not a mainstream star. The way Hulk Hogan, even the Miz,
John Cena, The Rock, Batista.
Honestly, I think the initial inclination to start AEW stemmed from the fact that Dusty Rhodes was the guy behind WCW after all those years, diba? Kaya yung initial pull ng AEW, all those guys who stopped watching wrestling because WCW went off the air, diba? So I feel like that's where they were coming from as well.
Lance is pointing out that the Ogogo Cody story is kind of tone deaf with the US versus UK narrative when it didn't need to be about that. And I agree. Kasi why are you painting the British guys as bad guys when, di ba nga, yung concept of the American dream is that anyone can make it in America. So when you're the American guy...
Kasi there's a little thing called the American Revolutionary War.
Nobody remembers that anymore.
Di ba kayo nanood ng Hamilton?
I actually did. But Right. Let's not make it about that. But we know what the narrative is, American dream. Not the American dream, but yung concept of the American dream. So parang bakit ko i-cheer si Cody kung siya mismo yung nagsasabi sa foreigner na, no, you cannot succeed in my company, in my country, in my industry. Like, come on, Cody. Come on. Be better. Okay, let's talk about the Casino Battle Royal. And there are too many names here. So I'm just going to go out with my pick, and then Ro and Chino, you can go out with your picks. I'm picking Christian Cage.
Yeah, why not? Because you got to push him somehow.
Has it been 90 days since all those WWE guys got released?
Hindi pa.
April lang yun. April 15.
Okay. So because if that were the case, I would have gone TBA.
You could have gone with Andrade. Pwede naman siya.
Pwede po siya. So, as always, I will say TBA. It's always TBA.
I picked Christian kasi diba, they kind of planted the seeds for Christian versus Kenny, and Christian has said on the broadcast na he wants to earn his title shot, and the Casino Battle Royal is actually for a future title shot, unlike the Andre the Giant Memorial Battle Royal, which is for shits and giggles.
For a giant trophy
that you don't even get to keep.
You just get to stand by it. Anyway.
Next up, the tag team championships will be defended. It's the Young Bucks against Eddie Kingston and John Moxley. Are they going to win here, sina Mox and King?
It is up in the air, I think.
Yes.
It can go either way. I can see the Young Bucks winning. I can also see a change of the guard and having John and Eddie win. So I'm fine. Probably leaning toward the Young Bucks retaining. Pero, could be anything.
I'm also torn. I can also see Moxley and Kingston walk away just because they already have their chemistry hashed out. Diba?
Yeah.
They've built
Ang
off
ganda ng chemistry nila.
Yeah, they built off their history and the type of people that they are. So feeling ko talaga, I feel like they have a shot here.
Tsaka feeling ko, kailangan mo ng babyface champion since Shida's gonna drop title. And then see Miro is a bad guy, Kenny Omega is a bad guy. So somebody's got to be a babyface champion. So you might as well make it Mox and Eddie Kingston. Mark in the comment section is saying na yung Joker card or TBA niya for the Battle Royal is Bryan Danielson.
It's entirely possible, actually. I wouldn't put it past him. Di pa naman siya lumalabas. He could sign a one-off appearance with AEW. He hasn't re-signed with the WWE. Who knows? We can... nobody's teased it, pero hey, why not?
I would crap bricks if that happened. So, sana. Next up...
Hey, man, that's what we said about Christian the last time. Di ba?
And I did crap bricks.
Di ba? Exactly. So, malay natin. Lumabas talaga siya. Di ba?
Sana. It would be great. Next up, the TNT Championship is on the line. It's Miro versus Lance Archer. As much as I want Archer to win, you can't have Miro looking weak, losing in his, first or second title defense?
Yeah, it should be a fun match. Miro to.
Technically second kasi he's defending it on Dynamite.
Okay. Next up, the Stadium Stampede match between the Pinnacle and the Inner Circle. And if the Inner Circle loses, they have to disband. Hindi ko gusto tong stipulation na to. Like, parang minadali, hindi siya earned for me.
Yeah, the entire thing is earned. Kasi the first big match should have been the Blood and Guts match, diba? Pero hindi.
Yeah.
I want to say that the Pinnacle wins, pero I think it might be too early for the disbanding of the Inner Circle. Pero I could totally see the Inner Circle disbanding then, and they get back together sometime down the line to challenge the Pinnacle again.
Feeling ko the Inner Circle wins. Then they go to a third crazier match.
I agree with that. Yeah, let's go with that. I'll agree with that.
I was going to say the exact same thing as Chino. Yeah. 1-1 and then my rubber match sila. So, ano yun? Mimosa Mayhem or whatever they called it.
Ubusan ng lahi.
Ubusan ng lahi.
Bibili nila sa PWR yun. Ubusan ng lahi.
So, I would like to see a rubber match after Stadium Stampede. Okay, last two matches for Double or Nothing. You've got Brian Cage versus Hangman Adam Page.
Yeah, man, I don't know.
Why is this matchup happening? Did I miss something?
Kasi wala. No, they wanted something for Cage to do.
No. Team Taz has been messing with Hangman Page.
Yeah.
Okay.
So may konting hanash din yung Team Taz and Dark Order. So that's why.
Yeah, I think Hangman is winning this so that Cage can turn on Taz the way he's been teasing for a while now.
Yeah.
And I think Hangman needs to keep winning yung mga big matches even though he loses on Dynamite kasi siya pa rin yung eventually na mag-challenge kay Kenny, diba? Like we can kind of tell based on yung tendency ng AEW to tell these stories long term. Finally, my favorite tag team in AEW, Sting and Darby Allin, will be taking on Scorpio Sky and Ethan Page. Sana matalo si Darby Allin.
At this point, they have been keeping Sky and Page on the literal sidelines the entire months since Ethan Page debuted on AEW. So dapat naman manalo na sila, di ba? Para na ipupush nyo sila.
Yeah, parang although I am going to say that I don't think Sting will like the fact that he has to. Siguro naman hindi siya yung kakain ng pin, but maybe a loss might not look so good for him in the long run. So baka hindi sila matnalo. Maybe, I don't know, because they keep painting Page and Sky as jobbers when they are in fact the farthest thing from it.
Yeah, I think mas kailangan ni na Scorpio Sky and Ethan Page to have a big win over names like Darby Allin and Sting. So I think they can afford to eat a loss here. So I hope they do. Let's take a break. When we come back, we'll talk about Army of the Dead, and we'll also talk about your favorite wrestlers turned actors. That's all coming up in a bit. But first, if you want to keep supporting the Wrestling podcast outside our streams, here's how you can do it through your online shopping on Lazada.
All right, guys, malapit na ang susunod na Lazada sale. It's on 6/6. So everything you need that you want to get, hashtag nasa Lazada yan. And you can support the podcast with your online shopping if you use our special affiliate link before you add to cart and check it out. You just got to click the link or type it in your browser, podlink.co/EUL. Again, podlink.co/EUL. Portions of your purchase will go a long, long way in helping us do what we do.
And now a quick word from our other podcasts on Podcast Network Asia.
Mahilig ka ba sa kwentong kababalagan at misteryo? Halina't sa aking campsite at pag-usapan natin mga kwentong humalo sa kultura, kasaysayan at kamalayan ng ating mga Pilipino. Ako si Earl, ang inyong campmaster at inaanyayahan ko kayong makinig sa Philippine Campfire Stories Podcast. Makinig ng libre sa Spotify, Apple Podcasts at sa inyong paboritong podcast platforms.
Before we get to our shout-outs on Kumu, we just want to say hi and big thanks to the guys from Kumu. And if you guys haven't heard of them yet, Kumu is a Pinoy live streaming app where we're actually streaming right now at Wrestling Pod. You can follow us over there. We've got that blue verified check mark. So thank you very much to Angelo, to Ron, James, and the rest of the Kumu team. Syempre si Casey. You can connect and tambay with Filipino streamers and celebrities like Casey Montero over there. And alam niyo, Kumu's actually giving away 1 million pesos this Friday. That's tomorrow.
Ooh.
So kung gusto nyo manalo dyan, manood ka na at sumali ng QMK 1 million drop quiz Moco 1 million drop happening tomorrow, May 28, 9 p.m. Syempre, only on Kumu. You can use our link in the description and download Kumu right now. And while you're at it, follow us at Wrestling Pod. Now let's get some shoutouts.
All right. Before we answer questions together, Emil has been really active on Kumu. Thank you for commenting, Emil. He predicts that the Young Bucks will retain, but they still have to do a lot as heel champions for him. Brian Danielson needs to come out to the final countdown. I think Tony Khan is the only guy who can pay for the final countdown from Europe. Kung siya nga yung TBA. He also thinks Pinnacle wins because Fozzy is also going on tour. Yeah, I forgot about that. He did say so. Kyle sent us another hello. Thanks, Kyle. Prince RJC says Cody versus Ogogo winner gets a new action figure. Thank you guys for tuning in on Kumu and keeping the conversation going. It's really fun to have you and read out your reactions to what we're predicting out loud.
Sabi ni Kyle, mid-year na pala ang bilis, parang kailan lang nag-New Year. I know, right? And we're still on lockdown. So please, don't forget to register to vote, right? Because that's one way you can voice your anger out. Let's get some questions before we talk about Batista and Army of the Dead. Julian has been asking since we started the stream, if one of you are given the chance to take over WWE, what are 3 things you'd change about the product?
Medyo loaded yung question niya. I'll say this briefly as I can, and say, first of all, improve the women's division by giving them a more regular role. They can get their own show better. If they can get a pay-per-view, that's fine. I would also say put newer guys over. Guys you don't see, yung mga nasa main event. Maybe they deserve a spot at the limelight. And finally, maybe, I don't know, add more cinematic matches. Because why not?
Okay, I only have one big change to make naman talaga for WWE kasi it's the most recurring problem I see on the main roster. It is them they need to utilize their deep AF roster. They need to put everyone on the show. Don't rely on the same people every week. This is what AEW does. They rotate the cast as much as they could. They hired a lot of people and they signed a lot of people, and they are putting them to good use. WWE feels like, or Raw and SmackDown kind of feel like the same few people are hired and employed by the WWE. Kailangan lang gamitin yung bench kasi it is deep. It's the deepest, one of the deepest in the world, if not the deepest. AEW is only rivaling their depth. So yun, promote their matches and, make sure the stories make some sense. Tell stories. Stop ripping up the scripts before the show.
Yeah. I'll round it out and I'll mention something I thought Ro would mention before me, and that's scrapping the idea of the independent contractor. And
yes.
Giving wrestlers benefits, healthcare benefits especially, and just making sure that everyone's in a position where they can take care of themselves, because wrestling is a very high risk industry. Diba? Yung mga injuries, they will happen. So pension plans, putting them in place so that you won't have to hear stories of people like Virgil or yung mga old wrestlers who should be retired but are still performing at indie shows, not because they really, really, really want to wrestle, but because they need to put food on the table. So
I just want to say this to one WWE Hall of Famer: you don't have to be a main eventer to deserve health insurance and all the nice benefits of being a regular employee.
Yeah. So there. We hope that satisfies your question, Julian, and that answers it. Okay, let's talk about Army of the Dead, because we have been on the hashtag Road to Batista since basically the moment we signed with Podcast Network Asia in September of 2019. So ganda na katagal tong recurring gag na to on the podcast. So we're really trying to get Dave Batista on the pod. It's no secret. So if you guys would like to do us a solid, please try to help us out with the campaign. Help us make noise. Get Batista's attention. Get the attention of his team. If CNN Philippines can book an interview with Dave Batista, then I hope that somehow, some way, the Wrestling Podcast can. But while that hasn't happened yet, let's talk about his movie. Because Chino, I know you have a lot of things you want to get off your chest about Army of the Dead.
Okay, so spoilers ahead. First of all, spoilers ahead for those of you that haven't seen it. But I have a question for those of you that have. What is the opposite of a dead fetus? Like if a fetus starts out as undead, shouldn't it be an alive baby? Like that's the most diba, logically that makes sense, right? Am I wrong here, guys?
I guess
that was one of my last questions. In fact, that wasn't even in my top 10 questions coming out of Army of the Dead.
Also, why did they have to waste? They wasted all that money on a CGI tiger, and that's all you need to know about the movie. You wasted money on a CGI tiger.
O hindi naman, dami rin nilang gastos for Tig Notaro because I had to scrub Scott D'Elia out of there.
Man. I don't know. It wasn't gonna be the cinematic masterpiece. Hindi naman siya Citizen Kane when you go into it. Diba? So I wasn't expecting it to be super great. I just expected it to be a zombie movie that happened to be a heist.
Okay, I'm glad you brought that up. It doesn't have to be Citizen Kane. There are a lot better zombie movies out there than this movie. Okay, Shaun of the Dead, Anna versus the Apocalypse, the original Dawn of the Dead with George Romero. Even Zack Snyder's remake of Dawn of the Dead was better than this. Diba? It was better than this. So I don't know.
So I normally hate zombie movies. I hate anything that scares the hell out of you. But I watched this alang-alang sa inyong dalawa, and because I want to get to talk to Batista with you guys. So I put in that good karma for the podcast. All I can really say about it is that I love the women in it. I love how beautiful they are. I love how badass they are. Tig Notaro, who I already mentioned. The girl who plays Lily is so hot. She's like French Kristen Stewart. Oh my God. Even Sister Encarnacion is so hot at 44 that I really felt bad when she met the end that she met in the way that she did.
Also, I like how the zombie's first impulse was to break her neck. I'm a bloodthirsty zombie, therefore I will break your neck.
Okay. And twist it 180 degrees.
Hindi kita kakainin, diba? Okay, yeah.
So, coming out of the movie, yung thoughts ko was, yung pinakapatalo talaga dun was si Kate, yung anak ni Batista in the movie. But no, I retract that. I rescind that. And yung pinakapatalo was the bride at the very start, who gave her newly wedded groom a blowjob while they were on the road. Because they were the reason why that entire problem happened in the first place.
That's true. They probably thought it was safe because it was a desert road. Nobody else was on the highway. So, yeah, mali ba nila na may zombie virus? Sino ba gumawa ng zombie virus?
First of all, yung this is going all the way back to the very first zombie movies ni George Romero. Zombies are actually just a metaphor for human stupidity. That's just it. The biggest killer of zombie movies isn't zombies. It's just stupid people. And if that's what you're looking forward to, you get a lot of that in Army of the Dead.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's our condensed review of Army of the Dead. Dave Batista, please don't hate us. Notice that we did not dunk on you at all because we love
Maganda
you.
Maganda yung performance niya. Oy, nawala si Chino.
Uy, nawala si Chino No, si Batista papasok, guys!
Pero si Batista. No, but the good thing is, he made a good performance. I didn't feel like I was watching Batista the wrestler. The same way when I watch a Rock movie, a Dwayne Johnson movie, I'm really watching Dwayne the Rock Johnson do a different part or the same exact part. I can also kind of say that for John Cena sometimes.
But not all
Batista,
the time.
Bautista is really showing some really good range in his acting career so far.
Yeah. So on that note, Rose, since mentioned mo na, it didn't feel like he was the same Batista we see in every Batista movie or in WWE. Let's transition to our TBT for this week. And for Throwback Thursday, let's talk about the best wrestlers turned actors. And you can't have a conversation about the best wrestlers turned actors without talking about Dwayne The Rock Johnson, because I think he's the baseline for this conversation.
Yeah, he is a baseline because he happens to be the most popular wrestler turned actor. But is he the best?
I don't think so.
I think he's the best at playing himself, which is a lot of roles he's taken over the years. Na parang siya palagi yun eh. It's really just him being him.
Chino, alam ko opposition ka rito. So what's the defense against The Rock?
It's going to be hard. First of all, let me just say, if he is the baseline, then everybody else is negative. Parang hirap talunin eh. Kasi
I don't think everyone else is negative.
It's hard. It's so hard. Who are you going to put up against The Rock? Seriously. Who?
Okay. I think no. Hindi siya one standard lang, 'di ba? Kung drawing power or like yung how lucrative the movie's gonna be, I think it's The Rock number one. But I guess if we're going to make The Rock just the baseline, we can talk about acting. Like if you see the guy in the movie, is he playing that same character or is he actually showing some range? So if The Rock is your baseline, I would argue that John Cena is actually a better performer, a better actor than The Rock because mas versatile si Cena. Look at freaking Ferdinand.
The Rock cannot pull off the vulnerability of Ferdinand that John Cena was able to pull off.
Hindi ko na napanood yung Ferdinand.
John Cena
it was great, dude. It was great.
Level of filmography that The Rock has had. Yes,
we're not talking filmography. We're talking about acting ability. Like, can you believe that he's playing a different guy?
That's how you figure out if you have acting chops. The more movies you do, the better you get.
No!
Yeah, what? Are you seriously arguing?
The more movies you get, the better you are as an actor? I don't think that's necessarily correct.
Okay, let me explain. Okay, John Cena has had about half the movies that Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson has had. Okay,
sure.
Granted, John Cena has also done major